What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 187 of Hashtag AskGSM here today for June 28th, 2017. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. First and foremost, thank you for all the cooperation with the past 2 weeks of Hashtag AskGSM. As I said 2 weeks ago, I was on vacation last week, so I filmed the last week's episode ahead of time 2 weeks ago on the Wednesday before last week, the same day I filmed 2 weeks ago, episode 185. And I got no questions 2 weeks ago for last week, none on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, nothing. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to not send in any questions, knowing they would not be incorporated into last week's episode. But to make up for it, we have a super-sized show on tap for you guys here today. Over 3.5 pages worth of questions. So we got a pretty stacked show here for you guys today. But we're reaching the halfway point of 2017. It's hard to believe. This Friday this Thursday, Friday, today's the 28th. So Friday, Saturday, whatever, marks the official halfway point of 2017, if you can believe it. This year has just fucking flown by. It's crazy to think about, but looking forward to that. And also, too, before we get started, two things. I was thinking before we started the show, we're quite a ways away, a couple of months away, actually. Not until September or October. If someone wants to do the math, I could do so myself. I'm just too lazy. We'll figure it out at some point. But episode 200 is coming up, I think, in either September or October. Like I said, I got to figure it out. If I just type it in, if I just do the math, it'll take me 20 seconds, but I forgot to do so before I started recording here. I want to make that episode as big as possible, do as many questions as we possibly can, either answer more questions than I ever have before, which I don't know what the limit has been. I feel like I've done 5 pages worth of questions before. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back in the annals of Hashtag AskGSM to figure that out, but yeah, that episode's going to be pretty big, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Maybe we can have people send in questions like way in advance, and we could do one super-sized show and bring all these questions in. Like, if you send in an extra question each week, like more than you usually do, and that extra question can be incorporated into the 200th episode, whenever that might be, that'd be pretty cool. Or I was thinking, which you guys might like even more, getting on all the people I've had so far, with the exception of Haley, who really did not kind of guest star in the show last month. She was kind of not sort of a presence here in the program. But getting on the 4 guys who have been a real staple here on the show. Tom, I know, only did 1 episode, but I got a lot of great feedback on his show when we talked last month or in April, whenever that might have been. I have not talked to Tom since I graduated at all, but I would love to have him get him back here on the show for a one-off, maybe for that 200th episode. Tom, Jason, who's been on a few shows, John, who probably has broken the record for more episodes, guest starred here on Hashtag, and I think RJ, but RJ's been on a few as well. So getting those 4 guys on here for a 5 horsemen episode, so to speak. I don't think I could talk to them all at the same time, but maybe recording certain parts of the show at various times. And I don't know, just getting them all on the show for just one episode for that big 200, which would be pretty cool. So again, we're so far out from that. That's like not until the fall, but I was just kind of turning my wheels this morning in regards to that. And also, before we get started, I promise one last plug here. It has nothing to do with me, but I strongly recommend that you check out the Talking Smack show from last night that aired on the network after SmackDown, after 205 Live. It was fucking great. Talking Smack has been like decent, good lately without Daniel Bryan. It's been all right, but Daniel Bryan is what makes that show so fucking entertaining. Last night's show might have been the best overall episode of Talking Smack ever. That's how good it was. From Carmella showing up, to the Usos, who are always entertaining, to fucking Kevin Owens, the guy is hilarious. Kevin Owens is so great. And his chemistry with Daniel Bryan, and specifically Renee Young, is so damn funny. I cannot recommend it enough. SmackDown was great last night. Raw was pretty good on Monday. 205 Live was all right. But by far the best thing I've seen all week was, again, by far, that Talking Smack with Kevin Owens, Renee Young, and Daniel Bryan. So check it out when you can. The segment lasts about maybe 10, 15 minutes. Maybe not 15, but check out the whole episode. Because, again, Carmella's great. The Usos are always awesome. But Kevin Owens is the star of that show. So check it out when you can. Without further ado, let's get started here with your questions. If you want to send in a question, please do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, be sure to drop a comment on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get started here with Prince5835. from YouTube. Their question was, in your opinion, what are some of the best SmackDown and Raw exclusive pay-per-views? So in the current incarnation of the brand split, I would say TLC was probably the best SmackDown show that I've seen. I thought Backlash was really good. No Mercy was really good. TLC was probably the best. Backlash and Money in the Bank were okay. They were good, but they weren't great, I wouldn't say. They were pretty good. Elimination Chamber was also pretty good, if only for the top three matches. But I thought TLC was by far the best SmackDown exclusive show we've had in the current incarnation of the brand split. Raw exclusive events, Payback was probably the best. Clash of Champions was kind of lackluster. Hell in a Cell, which I was at, which I thought was completely boring. Even being there, I thought it was not a great show at all. Roadblock sucked. What else did we have? Fastlane fucking was absolutely awful. One of the worst shows, not of the past year, but of all time. And at least in the past decade, it was pretty fucking bad. Fastlane sucked. Extreme Rules was okay. It was not a bad show, but it was okay. But again, Payback I thought was great. So that's in the current incarnation of the brand split. If you're talking all time, I can't point to one, because a lot of the shows I'm thinking of were co-branded during the original brand split, like Survivor Series 02 and SummerSlam 02. The Backlash shows were always really, really good. Backlash 04, even 03 I thought was pretty good, but 04 and 05 were fucking awesome. Those Backlash shows were really, really good, so check out those. For SmackDown shows, I don't know, honestly, like the SmackDown exclusive pay-per-views were really not all that great, to be quite honest with you. A lot of them were pretty forgettable. But the Great American Bash shows were all right. Judgment Day was kind of cool sometimes. That's really about it. Armageddon was never really that great on a yearly basis. But yeah, I would say for that incarnation of the brand split, I would say go back and watch some old Great American Bash shows and Judgment Day, all of which I've reviewed on WrestleRant, by the way. I'm officially done reviewing every pay-per-view ever for WrestleRant. And at least, I mean, the past year we haven't gotten to like TLC 2016 and shit, but beyond that, I have reviewed every old pay-per-view on the network, which is fucking crazy to think about. WWE shows anyway. ECW and WCW we will get to eventually, but again, just crazy to think about. I've watched and reviewed every old WWE pay-per-view on the network. It's insane. His second question: I've been looking at the old WWE shop section and some old WWE magazines, and I feel like wrestlers had more items for sale compared to now. Do you feel this way? Actually, no, I feel like it's the opposite. You look on Shop now, and every wrestler has a fucking shirt. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, I mean, if they're making more money. From what I understand, they're not making like a ton of money on merch and shit. But everybody has a shirt. Like, you would never see that 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago. Only the top stars had t-shirts. Now you have fucking James Ellsworth has a t-shirt. Carmella's getting a push now. That's probably not the best example, but everybody has t-shirts. Every single superstar has a shirt because they want to brand everybody. They think if there's at least a small demand for a shirt for anybody, they'll make a shirt for you. But not only the t-shirts, like, I know a couple of years ago when Punk was still in the company, they had fucking lawn gnomes for the guy. They had clocks, alarm clocks. Like, who would buy half of this shit? But they sell it. I know they sell it for John Cena and AJ Styles. They sell fucking dog leashes, blankets, coffee mugs, everything. Even Enzo and Cass. And I know they split up. I don't know what's going to happen in their merch numbers, but they had everything. They had all this different kind of shit. It was crazy, which is why I feel like they should not have broken them up, because their merch was still selling like crazy, even how bad it's become in the past couple of months. I'll talk about that later with Enzo and Cass splitting up. But no, I feel like there's more merch now for more superstars than there's ever been before. And I get it. They want to make money. They want to brand it, literally everyone on the roster. But when fucking James Ellsworth has a shirt, how much does it really mean? Like, I know it's an honor for a wrestler to get their first t-shirt, their first action figure. But when it happens to like someone like James Ellsworth, or like Bo Dallas has his own shirt, there's no Titus brand shirt yet, but I'm sure we'll get one. Everybody has a shirt in today's roster. It's ridiculous. Again, good for them. It's just crazy to think about compared to 10 years ago. If Lucha Underground was to have a video game made, what company do you see making it? I'm not great with video games and the companies, other than I know THQ went out of business years ago, which is why 2K took over. 2K would not make a Lucha Underground game because they're not a big brand like WWE and the NBA and Madden and all that other shit. I don't know. I don't follow too much of video games anymore, so I couldn't say. But it's really weird you ask that, because I was thinking about that and thinking about tweeting it a few days ago on how cool a Lucha Underground game would be. It would be hard to make one because the roster is constantly changing. And it wouldn't be like a yearly thing like with the WWE. I know TNA made one years ago, almost about a decade ago, and that was the only one they ever made. I know they made one maybe for DS or like a mobile app game or something, but I do own the PS2 game from like 2008 just called TNA Impact. I think that's what it was called, TNA Impact the game. And their roster back then was pretty damn good. I mean, today it probably wouldn't be that good, but the old TNA roster was great. The game was not that good at all. The storyline sucked, but their roster was awesome at the time. A Lucha Underground game would be great, considering all the people you would be able to play as, from Prince Puma to fucking Pentagon Jr., Mil Muertes, Johnny Mundo, Phoenix, Aerostar, Drago, even Ivelisse and Sexy Star. A lot of great wrestlers there, Son of Havoc. That would be a really cool game. Again, they're struggling to even stay on the air because ratings aren't what they should be, I guess, or what they were hoping for. And they taped Season 3, what's airing right now, which I'm loving, by the way. The second half of Season 3 has been great. But at the same time, they taped that shit over a year ago. Like, that's ridiculous. We give TNA shit all the time for taping their stuff so far in advance. Lucha Underground literally taped this stuff a year ago. Like, that's insane. And spoilers are out there. I don't read them. People spoil me sometimes on Twitter, which I don't really appreciate, but it is what it is. I mean, not like tweeting out spoilers, but like literally tweeting me spoilers in regards to what has happened in the rest of Season 3, which, again, I don't appreciate, but it's the nature of social media and the business, whatever, and spoilers. But, yeah, so for that alone, I don't think a video game would ever be made. But in a dream scenario, if it was, I couldn't tell you the company because I don't really follow video games, but 2K would be cool. I don't at all see that ever happening, but it would be damn sweet. If someone like can make a custom video game, I know people out there, and like, I'm kind of familiar with Steam and shit like that because my roommate was into it. My college roommate was very much into like Steam and stuff like that. Could they make a Lucha Underground game on there? Like, that's my question. If so, that would be pretty damn cool. I would definitely check it out if it came out. His next question here. I know that you're a fan of SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, and it's been about 11 years, oh god, don't remind me, since the game came out. Coming from someone who has spent countless hours playing that game since I got it for Christmas that year, what is your overall opinion of the game and memories while playing it? Another thing I was thinking about just recently, all the summers I've spent, not only that game, but, I mean, that game I'll get to in a second, but all the SmackDown and Raw games, or just the WWE games in general, how many summers I spent playing those games as an 8th grader, 7th grader, 9th grader, even in high school. I played those games every single summer. SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 was my first ever WWE video game, and I got that for my birthday in 2008, only mere months after I started watching the product, and I loved it, played it all summer that year in 2008. In 2009, in the midst of moving, I played 2009 a lot. I played SVR 2009 a lot, or maybe, was it 2010? No, it was 2009. I played 2010 a lot, SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 the following summer. So again, I spent many, many summers, at least 4 or 5 consecutive summers playing those video games that were that fucking good. And I don't really play too much anymore. I very rarely play the current games. I have them, I just don't have the time to play them. I wish I could. And even then, I mean, they don't come out with them for the Wii anymore, and people would be shocked when I would tell them, oh, you have it for the Wii. I'm like, yeah, that's the only thing I know how to play. That's the only real system I play. The Nintendo was my thing. I had the GameCube, I had Wii, I had 64, which I still play from time to time. As much as I play SVR 07 with John, and I started playing that game... when did I buy that game for the first time? I know John had us play it one time. For the first time, I think I was introduced to it in like the spring of 2009. So almost 8 years ago at this point again, which is crazy to think about. But beyond that, I think I bought the game later that year because I remember playing it a lot my freshman year of high school, like in late 2009, early 2010. And I would do my own GM mode. John and I started our own GM mode in the SVR 07 in the summer. We're coming up on the 6-year anniversary. July 9th, to be exact. We did a whole SVR GM mode career retrospective in 07 from SVR 07 on the 5-year exact anniversary on July 9th of 2016. Now we're coming up on 6 years. We were going to wrap it up a couple months ago. We just couldn't do it. We're still going on. We will definitely wrap it up soon. We don't play all that often because I don't see John all that often. He works. I work. I was in school. He was in school, all that other shit. So I see him every couple months. We did hang out in early June about a couple of weeks ago, and we played, oh my god, 9 months in the game in GM mode. That's how much fun it is. There was no specific memory, but really all the memories combined of playing that game, of just long nights in the summer, winter, spring, all this other shit, whenever John and I could hang out. And we used to hang out a lot more many years ago when we were still in high school and had more time on our hands. We would play that game literally for hours on end. We still do, but for like an entire weekend we would hang out and play that game and get through years of GM mode, which is just, I could not even fathom of doing that today. Just we don't have the time. And we put a lot more thought into our matches and matchmaking and shit today than we did years ago. But that stuff brings back a lot of fond memories. SVR07 is a great game. Probably my favorite WWE game ever. I still play No Mercy when I have the time. When I'm over at my grandma's house, she has the N64 still. I'm still in working condition, shockingly, after almost 20 fucking years. I still play that game. WCW versus NWO Revenge. Great game as well. But SVR07 still holds a very special place in my heart, and I still play it to this day with John whenever we get to hang out. The game on the whole, again, is great. GM mode is amazing. I almost freaked the hell out when someone had tweeted me. Multiple people tweeted me. So, thanks to you guys for tweeting me on Monday of last week when the news broke after the trailer came out for WWE 2K18 that GM mode, again, it wasn't confirmed, but I think someone teased it, that it would be a part of the upcoming video game, and I freaked the fuck out. I would play that constantly if that was the case. Now that the brand split is back, it makes perfect sense to bring back GM mode, honestly. So I hope they do. That was so much damn fun. I really, really love GM mode. But yeah, so the overall game is really good. GM mode is great. If they bring it back for 2K18, I would fucking love that. But the story mode is great, like the road to WrestleMania and shit, and you would do old stories, and you would have to unlock wrestlers and matches, which you still have to do today. But I don't know, the SVR07 is, I don't know, I could play that for hours on end. The current games are great, but I feel like there's no solid direction. I feel like you could play the storyline in one day and get it over with. But there's nothing, I think John calls it the replay value, and going back to the game and playing GM mode, like you can play that for years on end, because the game never really ends. There's fresh matchups, fresh feuds, fresh superstars you can bring in and make and put in the game. The replay value for today's games, again, is great for like doing expedition mode and playing with friends and shit like that, but beyond that, once you beat the storyline, whatever that might be, I forgot what it was for the last video game, it gets pretty old after a while, so here's hoping they bring that back for 2K18. In his last question here, how would you have booked a Shawn Michaels, I'm still on the SmackDown and Raw thing, how would you have booked a Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero feud? So I think the original plan was to do it at WrestleMania 22. One of the old writers said that years ago. Whether that was true or not, I'm not exactly sure, but prior to Eddie's passing, I think the initial plan for WrestleMania was to do an Eddie and Shawn WrestleMania 22 interpromotional match between Raw and SmackDown. So that's what I would have done. Eddie and Shawn, alike in a lot of ways. A part of that elite group, I would say. Shawn, Eddie, Owen, and maybe Savage too. I thought it was someone else instead of Savage, but maybe it was Savage that I would put in that elite group of people that could always get a great match out of just about anyone. Now AJ Styles kind of holds that place in today's WWE, and maybe Daniel Bryan too before he retired. But yeah, no, a Michaels and Eddie feud would have been great, and the whole religious aspect you could tap into with maybe Eddie being a heel, and going into WrestleMania 22, that would have been killer. So prior to Eddie's passing, I think it would have been great, and had he not died, I think that would have been the best way to go with it. If you didn't do it then, if you wanted to do it prior to Eddie's passing, so you got it out of the way, there really would not have been a time to do it, because they were never really on the same show from what I could recall. Like when Shawn came back in 2002, I think Eddie was always on SmackDown. I'm pretty sure Eddie was on SmackDown by late 2002. He was still on. He was initially on Raw. Then he jumped over to SmackDown later on in 2002, and then he was a part of SmackDown until he died in 2005. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the way it worked out. So I think the only real way to do it would have been an interpromotional match at WrestleMania. So that's how I would have booked it anyway. Emmanuel A. from YouTube, his question was, have you heard about Glow? If you know nothing about it, basic summary is that it's it was an 80s promotion centered around women wrestlers, hence the full title, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It had a documentary in 2012 and most recently a Netflix series based on the promotion. The Netflix show just released all 10 episodes of the first season on Friday, featuring various wrestler cameos from Carlito to Joey Ryan. In fact, one of the major characters is even played by Kia Stevens, a.k.a. Awesome Kong. Yes, I have heard plenty about Glow from people at work, family members, friends. People are tweeting all about it. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I do want to check it out at some point. Like you said, all the episodes are on Netflix. That's the beauty of today's television, that for some shows you have to wait a week, which actually I would prefer, honestly, with the way Raw and SmackDown work, where you kind of have to with wrestling. But with a television show, it's a bit easy. Like Lucha Underground could very easily do that. With what platform? I don't know. I know they have that with Netflix now, the first 2 seasons, not the 3rd season. I don't know. I prefer the weekly digest of watching shows as opposed to putting them all out there all at once. But I could see why they do it and why people prefer it. I just don't have the time. I didn't watch the first episode, but I do have Netflix. So I went to the first episode to see how long it was. 37 minutes. I don't know if that's how long every episode is. But if so, it might be a while for me to get through the entire show, which might be the point. I can't binge shit. Like I don't do that. Sometimes like I'll binge watch. When they came out with Swerved about a year or 2 ago, I would watch all the episodes then because they came out with all of them at once. And they were only like 20 minutes long though. There were 5 episodes, 20 minutes each. It took me an hour and a half. It wasn't bad at all. 37 minutes, 10 episodes is a bit different. So probably at some point I do want to check it out. It looks like it's great. Like you said, Carlito's in it, Joey Ryan. I saw Kaz and Daniels tweeting about it. I don't know if they're in the promotion or I don't think so, but I saw them tweeting about it. I know Alex Riley plays a pretty big role in the show too. I'm a big A-Rai fan, or was anyway, so I'll check it out for him. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I'll definitely check it out at some point when I have the time. His second question, speaking of Netflix, have you heard about the show Master of None? The reason I'm mentioning that show is because they made a reference to WWE SummerSlam, sort of, where Dean Ambrose apparently wrestled Samoa Joe for the WWE Championship. Would you ever like to see that match at SummerSlam? I have not heard of the show. Again, I don't watch really Netflix at all, but might have to check it out. Dean Ambrose and Samoa Joe, yeah, that would be a good match. I guess I was thinking of the babyface and heel dynamic. I guess Joe would have to be a heel, but Ambrose currently, as a babyface, does nothing for me. Like, he does not seem all that motivated whatsoever. Like, when he came out on Monday wearing the Big Baller brand t-shirt, I'm like, really? Like, this is what Dean Ambrose has been reduced to? And that whole segment was a complete train wreck. People loved it. People hated it. Very polarizing. A lot of polarizing opinions on that segment on Raw on Monday. The show overall was good, but that segment in particular drew a lot of different opinions from people. But anyway, yeah, in regards to a Joe and Ambrose match, what I'm trying to say is that Ambrose as a babyface currently just does very little for me, if anything at all, which is why an Ambrose-Joe match on paper currently might not be all that great, because Ambrose and Joe, I don't know, it's not a money pairing, but Joe as a heel is fucking great. And I don't know if you could do a heel and heel match between Joe and Ambrose, but it wouldn't be a bad match. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it. We could see it very well later on in 2017 or early 2018 because both guys are on the same show now, so that'd be pretty cool. His next question, do you identify 1997 as part of the New Generation era or the Attitude Era? I see your Wrestle Rant review videos of 97 pay-per-views, and you usually lump the quality of those shows with 98 and 99 as examples of the quality of wrestling in the Attitude Era, even though 97 is still linked to the New Generation time period. I think it's all very subjective. I think there's a lot of people who say the Attitude Era started in 97, and there's other people like yourself that say the Attitude Era didn't start until the Montreal Screwjob in late 97. So it really all depends. In the pay-per-views you're talking about, I mean, I've done pretty much all the 97 shows, but I have done all the 97 shows. But recently I did like the late 97 shows around the Montreal Screwjob. Those are absolutely the Attitude Era in my opinion. People might say it started with the Austin win. It started in late 96. It started with the Bret Hart promo in early 97 again. It really depends on who you're talking to. But yeah, like you said, that's what I would do. I would link those, I would lump those 97 shows into the Attitude Era. And I just don't enjoy them. I mean, I've seen a lot of people say 97 was a great year. Maybe it's because I wasn't around. it's just not my cup of tea. I don't know. They're not terrible shows, but they're not my thing with the McMahon Helmsley regime. And I know that's more 98, 99, but the matches they were having back then, and Los Boricuas and the Disciples of Apocalypse and the Nation of Domination, the fucking faction wars, which are just boring as all shit. I don't know. Yeah, I would absolutely lump the quality of those 97 shows into the Attitude Era quality shows as well, which again aren't bad. They're just not my cup of tea. They're just not for me. But again, like you said, the 97 era, is it still linked to New Generation? I guess. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. Apparently, you presume it is. I don't think it is, but I don't really think there's one official start date of the Attitude Era. I know you can go back to the McMahon promo where eating your vitamins and blah, blah, blah is so passe, which is even late 97, and the shows that I was doing was late 97 anyway. So, I don't know, but I would still say 97 to me was part of the Attitude Era, but it's all subjective. Captain Sunshine from YouTube, the Cass and Enzo fake-out was so obvious that Sting could have saw through it, but I'll give that segment credit for Enzo doing one thing I've never seen any WWE babyface do in a tag team breakup, and that's actually admitting his faults and taking some responsibility for the breakup. A lot of us have crapped on Enzo's character, and rightfully so, but how many babyfaces do you know had the emotional maturity to have their partner turn on them and go, maybe I deserve some of the blame for that? Yeah, that was well done. I mean, the segment overall, I wasn't a big fan of because it was so fucking obvious that Cass was going to turn. And they made me believe for a second they would join back up after they kind of dragged it out. I guess Enzo didn't see TakeOver Chicago from 2 months ago, or even last month, from a little over a month ago, when Tommaso Ciampa turned on Johnny Gargano on the stage. So, being on the stage, if you're in hot water with your partner in WWE, never stand with them on the stage, because you are absolutely going to get stabbed in the back every single time. That has been proven in the past month and a half. But no, I thought it was different. I mean, I thought the execution of the promos were good. Enzo's a really good talker. It's just, maybe I soured on that segment because, like I talked about, or I will be talking about momentarily, and I have said before, Enzo and Cass breaking up, to me, does nothing for me right now. Maybe at some point, very much down the road. But they only debuted on the main roster a little over a year ago. I know they were teaming in NXT for 3 or 4 years, but still, I mean, it's way too early to be breaking them up. Their merch is still hot. They're not as hot as they once were. They're not as popular, and they're not as over as they were a year ago. And I completely blame Vince and WWE for that creative whatever, because they fucked these guys up beyond belief with the awful feuds with the club. With not last summer, I thought the AJ, Luke, and Carl Anderson feud that we saw with Enzo and Cass and Cena was pretty good. I'm talking about after SummerSlam, when they fucked them up after then. And then the feud with Rusev and Lana and Jinder, it's who the hell possibly cares? That was stupid. But that's what, in my opinion, really killed Enzo and Cass. But yeah, so I'm just not a fan of how they were handled, but I would still not break them up. I'm not a fan of them splitting up. I know that wasn't really your question, but the segment was well done in that respect, with Enzo doing something different and taking some blame for his actions because he really cares about Enzo instead of being all angry, why did you turn on me? He will now going forward, but he was more heartbroken. And maybe we might see something similar from Johnny Gargano when he does resurface in NXT. We have yet to hear from him since Tommaso Ciampa turned on him not long ago, whose explanation for turning on Johnny was also pretty good and different, and saying if people are gonna turn on me, they're gonna forget about me if Johnny gets a new partner for this takeover show in Chicago and just replace me with fucking Oney Larkin or whatever, So his explanation was also pretty good, from what I can recall. But yeah, Enzo's promo I thought was good. I just still, again, not a fan of the two breaking up to begin with. Elena the Y, her question was from YouTube. Have you heard about a Pro Wrestling Illustrated 2006 article that speculated on where certain wrestlers would end up 5 to 10 years later? Notable predictions they made were Carlito being the face of WWE, Matt Hardy being the most controversial web commentator in the business and starting his own line of shoot interviews, and Chris Benoit writing the Bible on how to be a pro wrestler, all by 2016. That Chris Benoit one is really eerie, if only because wasn't there a Bible by where his son's body was, or his body was? That's fucking creepy. That's really creepy, but In regards to the other two, I mean, I know Benoit, if he didn't go off the deep end, he definitely would be an agent today or a producer or really being a go-to guy for learning about the business. So had he not killed himself and his family, then yeah, that would be definitely an accurate prediction. Carlito was laughable. I mean, you said that was written in 2006. I mean, maybe in 05 or maybe even 04, but by 06, it was pretty clear they weren't going to do much more with him than beyond the mid-card. So thinking that he would be the face of WWE is pretty laughable. I mean, that's like saying Cesaro is going to be the face of WWE in 10 years. We know he won't be. By this point, he's been in the company for 5 years, and he's been a mid-card guy. He's been a tag team guy. He's never going to be the face of the company. He might be a future world champion, by the grace of God, on SmackDown probably, but the face of the company, I doubt it. Carlito, at that point, it was pretty obvious he was not going to get above a certain level, nor was he really that good. I mean, Carlito was great as a character, but really, was he that good to warrant being the face of the company? No, he wasn't. Matt Hardy, I could believe, in being the most controversial web commentator in the business and starting his own line of shoot interviews, because by that point, by 06, the whole Lita thing had happened. He had blown up on the internet. He was really revolutionizing social media and YouTube and stuff like that. So that kind of did happen. I mean, Matt Hardy was really ahead of everyone else when it came to using Twitter and YouTube and Facebook to his advantage, and social media really in general. He was really a pioneer of sorts of social media, so that kind of did happen. But the Carlito thing was laughable to me. I do like reading articles like that, by the way, though, that kind of predict what's going to happen in like 10 years in WWE or whatever. WWE did an article for their magazine, which I think I might have talked about at one point, maybe not here on the show. I definitely wrote an article about it a few years ago, though, for Next Day Wrestling. They wrote an article for their magazine, and there might have been their November, December, January issue in late 09, early 2010, that said, Tomorrow's Champions. And had a picture of all these up-and-coming guys that they thought would be future stars and future world champions. And surprisingly, some of them did become future world champions. Yeah. I was going to say John Morrison, not in WWE, but outside of WWE. So again, it's really weird to think where those guys went and who they thought would be a future champ. They didn't say a future world champion per se. They did say future champions. Dolph Ziggler was on the cover of that. He did become a future world champion. He might have been the biggest success story out of them all. Tyson Kidd only won a couple tag titles, unfortunately, before having to retire 2 years ago. D.H. Smith, David Hart Smith, never went anywhere in WWE. Got a one tag title, and that was it. So he didn't really go anywhere. He got cut in 2011. Who else was on that list? Kofi Kingston was there. He's had a lot of success as a U.S. IC tag team champion. Never a world champion. Around that point, they were pushing him, so I could see why they put him on the list. DiBiase and Rhodes was probably the most interesting because they thought that they would be big stars. Rhodes, yes. He had a lot of success in WWE. He was definitely the bigger star over DiBiase and being a multi-time tag team champion, IC champion. But it only was until, now it's weird that I'm bringing it up now because he only really won his first world title last Friday in Ring of Honor, almost 10 years after the article was written. DiBiase went nowhere. They thought that he would be a big star. I know they were priming him to be a big star. He went nowhere. Not really anything against DiBiase. He wasn't really all that great anyway, but he had the look. His in-ring skills were good. He was a second-generation star, third-generation star even. But he just never really fleshed out. He really just kind of died out in 2011, 2010. And he never really fulfilled his full potential in the company. Evan Bourne was on there. He went nowhere in the company either. I know he had a quick run as tag team champion in 2011. And I know recently he's been in like Ring of Honor or New Japan, but he was never the big star that they thought he would be. So yeah, check that article out in addition to the one that you talked about. I love reading those kind of articles that kind of speculate what the future of WWE might be 10 years from now. Next question. I'll be perfectly blunt here. I don't give a flying F about Mike and Marie Kanellis being in WWE, but their theme song is the best. What wrestler were/are you apathetic towards, but had a great theme song? Currently, I would say Lana. I could not give two shits about Lana. Yes, she's hot, but I could not care two shits about her character. She lost last night in under a minute. But her theme song is great. I listened to it on loop for a while when it first came out on YouTube about 2 weeks or so ago. It's very catchy. Her theme song is very catchy. I'll give her that. As a wrestler, again, could not give two craps about her, but she's got a great theme song. For past people, Ricky Ortiz I kind of liked anyway, but he had a great theme song. He did not last long at all. If you even remember Ricky Ortiz, I give you props because he did not last long in the WWE whatsoever. But he had a pretty good theme song, a pretty catchy song. But yeah, currently I would say Lana. Do not really care about Lana at all. I'm far from a fan. She's hot, sure, but beyond that, the theme song is great, but beyond that, I'm not really a fan of hers whatsoever. And their next question here. This is probably going to sound like a weird question, but how do you feel about your voice? Have you ever felt self-conscious about how you sound on camera? Because I despise the sound of my own voice, and to this day, I still can't stand hearing myself being recorded. That's a great question, actually, and what I've been asked about quite a bit before, and I've talked about with other people off camera and stuff. Currently, I mean, it's weird. You have to find your own voice. Like, literally find your own voice. Maybe not, like, literally find it, but it takes time. I've been doing audio stuff for the past 6 years now. I think the first time I ever started doing audio stuff was with WrestleRant here on YouTube about 6 years ago at this point, in August of 2011. That was when I was on camera and stuff, and I still do on-camera stuff for, like, random video blogs. I can almost tolerate listening to old parts of like hashtag videos from recently. I don't like watching myself. I can tolerate listening to myself to an extent. I can't tolerate watching myself though. But that's normal though. If you don't like your own voice, that's completely normal. Almost everybody has that problem. But it took me a long time to find my voice. I cringe watching and listening to old videos I did back, not even when I first started, but even a few years ago. Like, only in the past year have I been able to tolerate myself listening to my own voice in these kind of videos and when I have to edit them and shit like that. But, yeah, no, I don't love my own voice, or I know some people do, which is great. I mean, I'm fine with it, much more content with my voice now than I was definitely over 5 years ago. Like I said, if I go back and watch old videos, I don't know, I definitely had more of, I probably still have somewhat of a lisp now, but I definitely had one way more noticeable 5 or 6 years ago in my videos. I don't know if it was a lisp or what it was, but I definitely sound a lot more different now than I did 5 or 6 years ago. If you want to check it out, you can. It's here on the channel, the old WrestleRant videos, whatever. The early installments. I'm talking about like the first 2 or 3 episodes. It's really bad. And it was bad for a long time. And even Jason, brought it up to me about a year ago. He's like, I don't want you to be offended or anything, but your old videos, it's like you sound a lot different, like you had a lisp or something. I'm like, I'm not offended at all because I completely know what you're talking about. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just getting older or what, but yeah, my voice is definitely different now than it was 5 or 6 years ago. But you just have to find your own voice. And maybe it's just doing this. I've done how many fucking audio videos for YouTube and my own podcast. Like, I can't even listen to old episodes of WrestleRant Radio without cringing because I just do not like my voice from back then. Even now, I still do not love the sound of my own voice. So again, it just takes time. So if you don't like your own voice, that's completely fine. That's pretty much the case with almost everybody. I'm more open to listening to myself than watching myself, but yeah, it just really is a matter of it taking time and growing into finding your own voice. So it's different for everybody. I know some people just absolutely hate the sound of their own voice. I know Haley did, which is why when we did hashtag, she said she didn't want to do it. And I said, you don't even have to listen to it. She's like, but other people, well, I'm like, they don't care. It doesn't matter. Your voice is fine. So, yeah, no, that's a very good question. I've had people like comment to me, like, especially in the past year for whatever reason. It has definitely been more prevalent in the past year. And even before I get to that, not even more so the sound of my own voice, but sometimes how I say things, and even like the little things, how I say things, how I pronounce things, how I fuck up sometimes, that bothers the hell out of me. I am absolutely my own biggest critic. And to some people, they might not even notice it, might not even care, but to me, it makes the biggest difference in the world. So I might have to record some things. Sometimes I have to record the intro to the show 4 or 5 or 10 times over because I don't like how I sound or how I came across, or I forget my lines, so to speak, whatever. But yeah, especially much more prevalent in the past year. I've had people come up to me in person, not only, even online, but people I know, like family members, people I work with have said, you have a really strong voice. Like, that was made for radio, or like you have the face for radio. No one has said that. I mean, jokingly, yes, but I mean, the voice thing, people have said to me, you have a really strong voice. Do you have a podcast? I'm like, yes, I do. I've been doing this for years, and maybe that's why. And I appreciate that every time someone has said that to me, like you have a voice for radio, like you have a really strong voice, that means the world to me because I do a lot of audio stuff with radio shows and this kind of shit. So when people tell me that, it means the world. But again, in terms of not liking your own voice, it comes to you over time. It might not even be a matter of age either. It might not even be a matter of age either, where like your voice is cracking a lot. My voice still cracks from time to time here on the show, and I leave it in because I don't even really bother to edit it. But for some people, it might be because they're young and their voice is still raspy, whatever. But it takes time. It took me 5 or 6 years to find a voice for me that I can tolerate. Not even like, but tolerate. So again, that's completely normal. Brandon A., also from YouTube, kind of going off of what we talked about. I think it was last week, maybe not 2 weeks ago. I think it was last week what his question was. But he wanted to follow up with this. First, I just want to clarify some things from my question last week. I am very aware that people have been saying that Vince is out of touch and have given him some blame for the product being the way it is. My point was that he does not get nearly the heat that the talent, production, and the writing staff gets. I believe Vince should have white hot. I believe Vince should have white hot nuclear heat. For crying out loud, Roman has so much heat that people still not only boo him, but ranted and raved about and posted garbage about him while he was taking time off because his brother just died. That tells me far too much blame goes one way as opposed to the other way, and Roman isn't even the only example. I do believe some fans place some blame on Vince, but what I'm trying to say is that he does not get nearly enough in the distribution and is being spread around too much. Or is being spread around too much, I guess is what you're trying to say. More should be fixed in his direction. Even with the blame that he gets, he's still getting too much of a pass. Have I cleared myself up and am I being too harsh? Again, I know what you're saying. But it's hard, like, with us at shows, like, if we don't like Roman Reigns, again, it has very little to do with the guy himself. The brother stuff, when Rosie passed away, and people were saying, oh, it was the wrong brother, like, fuck you, that is absolutely terrible. I am all for booing Roman Reigns in person, it's fun, it's not because I hate the guy, I might dislike his character, but when people talk trash about his brother, saying that, oh, they chose the wrong one, like, fuck you, that's terrible. But, like when you go to shows and stuff, when Roman Reigns is out there, you're not going to chant, you suck Vince or whatever, like Vince sucks or whatever, I don't know. You're not going to boo Vince because Vince isn't out there. You're going to boo the guy. So it's a lot harder to rebel against the system and saying that Vince sucks for his decisions and that he's making the wrong decisions and stuff like that. You can't really do that because he's not out there. You can't boo the guy. And when he is out there and you are booing him, they chalk it up to him getting heel heat. Not because he, rights Roman Reigns wrong. You know what I mean? So it's hard. I mean, people do blame Vince. I do understand what you're saying, that Vince does and should get all the heat, or he doesn't get enough heat from the fans, but he absolutely should. Again, I completely agree. But what can we do? I mean, we complain online all the time. That hasn't changed anything in regards to how Vince views the product. You can't go to shows and say Vince sucks or Vince is out of touch or whatever. You can't chant that. I mean, I guess it can, but no one's going to know what the hell you're talking about because a lot of the people that go to these shows are casual fans at best anyway. So what can you really do? I mean, we recognize that Vince is the be-all, end-all. He's the be-all, end-all of this, of the WWE. The buck stops with him. But what can we do about it beyond talking about it on radio shows and tweeting about it and making memes about how he's out of touch and all this other shit? You can't go to shows and boo him because he's not there. At least he's not on camera. So, again, you're not being too harsh. I understand what you're saying. I completely agree. There's just very little we could do about it, like at shows and stuff, because he's not on camera. Because it's his fault, yes, but what can we do? Boo the company? But when we boo the company, like when the first finish of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match was fucked up, and we boo Carmella, they chalk it up to heel heat. So, again, what can we really do about it? Next question, which wrestlers do you believe would have great wrestling names if they used their real names? You can't use wrestlers that already use their real names like Shinsuke Nakamura or Brock Lesnar, and you also can't use people like Kevin Steen or Bryan Danielson who use their real names in other promotions. This kind of goes along with that, but Cesaro, I mean, again, he used his real name in Ring of Honor and other promotions, but Claudio Castagnoli is a great, cool-ass name. Cesaro's cool too, but Claudio Castagnoli, like people call him Claudio all the time, like on WWE shows, not on Raw and SmackDown and stuff. But Daniel Bryan has slept up and called him Claudio before. Bayley, on the interview she just did with Stone Cold on his podcast on Tuesday, which was great, by the way, check it out when you can. She accidentally called him Claudio. So everyone, I'm pretty sure, calls him Claudio backstage. Would not doubt that at all. But again, that's kind of the exception because, like you said, you can't use people like Kevin Steen or Bryan Danielson because they use their real name in other promotions. I looked through the WWE roster on Wikipedia to look at people's real names to see if they sounded cooler than the names they have on TV. Dean Ambrose's real name is John Good. Like, literally, his last name is Good. Like, that's hilarious. That would be a cool wrestling name. It sounds kind of dumb, but it's his real name, which is pretty funny. So that's the best one I can come up with. But I did notice when I was looking through the roster on Wikipedia of everyone's real names, I did see that Johnny Gargano's name, his real name, is John Gargano. Like, that shocked the hell out of me. I guess I really should not be surprised. It doesn't sound like a wrestling name. It sounds like an actual name. But his real name is John Gargano. Bobby Roode's shocked me the most. His real name is Robert Roode. Like, I honestly thought they gave him that name in TNA. Maybe it's not. Maybe Wikipedia is wrong. But I honestly thought they gave him that name in TNA because he looked like Robert Roode. He looked like, Rick Rude, excuse me. He looked like Rick Rude, and he does. And maybe that isn't his real name, but according to Wikipedia, it is. And Wikipedia, I know, is not the most reliable source out there, but it says his real name is Robert Roode, and that shocked the hell out of me. It's like, wait, this guy's name is really Robert Roode? Like, that's badass. That's crazy. I mean, they use Bobby Roode now. He used to go by Robert Roode in TNA before. Why did they change his name? Because they had another Bobby? Or no, they changed Lashley's name because they had Bobby Roode. So they changed his name to Lashley, just Lashley, not Bobby Lashley. But why did they change it from Robert to Bobby? I think they had two Roberts on the roster at the time. I forgot who the other Robert was. I don't remember, but yeah, I could not believe that when I heard that. I'm like, when I saw that, like, his name is really Robert Roode? Like, that's crazy. Anyways, next question. Outside of WrestleManias, what are some of your favorite set designs in WWE history? The Rumble '08 I talked about before. They had a great, cool-ass set with, like, the Subway and MSG. I mean, you can't go wrong with MSG. That was a really, really cool set. They always go all out, or they used to go all out for their MSG shows. That was awesome. The old Backlash sets, which I talked about earlier, the Backlash shows were always really good. The swinging hooks I thought were great. Not one pay-per-view, not one installment in particular, but the Backlash shows, before 2016 and 2017, had a really cool set. So that was great. Those were always great visuals. And Money in the Bank, too. Like, I don't know if they still do it. I don't think they do. But the old vans and stuff, I know Money in the Bank was literally like 2 weeks ago, but I already forgot if they did it or not. I don't think they did. When they had like the money trucks and they had the ladders and stuff like that, that to me was really cool. Those sets were always really unique and awesome. Again, I don't think they've done it in a couple of years, but those were always really cool, especially to see in like the video games and stuff. Beyond that, I mean, other than WrestleMania, they haven't done a really cool set in a long time, so I can't say. But yeah, the Great American Bash sets I think were pretty cool. Armageddon was always usually pretty cool. TLC was awesome, like the chairs hanging from down above and the tables and stuff. Those were always really cool. But definitely one installment in particular, I would say Rumble '08. The Rumble '08 set was great with the MSG setup. That was pretty damn cool. His last question here, keep or erase in history? Shawn Michaels coming back from injury to return to the WWE in 2002, or Eddie Guerrero leaving WCW to come to the WWE in 2000? Whew, both are really, really good. I'm going to have to keep Shawn Michaels coming back from injury to return to WWE in 2002, as opposed to Eddie Guerrero leaving WCW to come to WWE in 2000. I mean, both are big hits if you erase one, and I know Shawn Michaels already had a career in WWE. You know what? I might have to change that, because Shawn Michaels had his time on top in the late 90s. And he only... The last 8-year run that he had from 2002 to 2010, it was amazing, but had it not happened, he would still go down as one of the greatest of all time. I think Eddie Guerrero still would too, for the work he did in other promotions, down in Mexico, in WCW, in ECW, and coming to WWE is really the icing on top. Really from like 2002 to 2005 was when he really shined, when he came back in 2002, and had the matches with Benoit, had the matches with Angle, and Brock Lesnar, and Batista, and all the others, Rey Mysterio. That was when he really shined. But I don't know, if you don't get Shawn Michaels coming back in 2002, then you don't get the DX reunion. You don't get either of the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker matches. I know they had matches back in 97, 98, but they weren't as good as that match at WrestleMania 25 and 26. So you don't get those matches. You don't get the Kurt Angle match from WrestleMania 2001 or WrestleMania 21 from 05. You don't get him and Shawn Michaels or him and Triple H at SummerSlam 02. So I'm going to say Shawn had better, not better, but more classic, memorable matches than Eddie did in the short stint that he had in WWE from 2000 or 02 to 05. So I'm going to say keep Shawn Michaels coming back and erase Eddie Guerrero, because he'd still be recognized as a great from WCW if he never came over. I know he would never have won a world title. I understand that, but I think it would have been a bigger loss had Shawn Michaels never come back from injury in 2002 as opposed to Eddie never coming over from WCW in 2000. Again, my opinion though. Colin G from Facebook, we move into the Facebook questions now. Did WWE make the right choice tonight with the Money in the Bank winner? And if not, who should have won and why? No, I thought they made the right choice. I was hoping Carmella would win, because if not, what was really the point? And I understand why they did it. I know someone else asked about it, which I'll get to momentarily. Like, why did they have Carmella win in the way they did? If there were merely... I don't think it's here. I don't think... Rusty Rage has had a couple questions here. I'll go back to Twitter. Or no, they're later on. That's why. They're right here in the document, but I'm at the Facebook questions first. But that's why they did it. They had Carmella win the way they did at Money in the Bank. As lame as it was, they did it to garner mainstream attention. Not from like ESPN and shit, even though ESPN does cover WWE on their website and stuff. But they wanted to get people talking, and they did. That was the only thing people were talking about coming out of that pay-per-view. The main event was great. Corbin winning was cool. But the biggest thing people were talking about was that finish. I talked about it. Everyone talked about it. And had a lot of eyes on SmackDown going into Tuesday, and it got their biggest rating since like April or something. So again, it worked. Then the rematch on Tuesday was really, really cool. And Carmella won as she should have on her own. So I thought the booking in retrospect was really well done. They had a rematch. Carmella won fair and square. Hopefully she gets rid of James Ellsworth now. But I thought Carmella was the right choice. Becky Lynch would have been cool, but all of her losses I think might lead to something bigger and better. With her becoming a darker, more determined Becky Lynch. That'd be pretty cool. I hope that happens. Charlotte, seen it a million times with her in the limelight. She'll get her shot later on down the road. Natalya, who cares? Tamina, who cares? Carmella is finally getting real heel heat. If she lost again on Tuesday, or she did not win the briefcase back, it would have been a waste to have her win in the first place, in terms of her own growth. So I'm glad she won again. She still misses Money in the Bank, whatever. And she'll only grow as a performer going forward, because Carmella as Miss Money in the Bank is going to help her get more heel heat, which she was lacking before. She's still not great in the ring, but still, I think Carmella's come a long way from where she was a year ago when she first got called up, when she first started 3 years ago in NXT. And she's great on the mic. Carmella is a talented, natural talker. She has a lot to work. She has a lot of room to go, a lot of room to improve in the ring. But on the mic, she's a natural. So again, if she can carry her own promos, going forward, I think she's a star on the rise. So I think they absolutely made the right choice with Carmella regaining the Money in the Bank briefcase on Tuesday. Andre G, also from Facebook, who do you see on today's roster being, let me start over here. Who do you see on today's roster that is as popular as RVD was during his prime? You know, John and I were talking a few weeks ago when we hung out for Extreme Rules in early June about how he had no idea, like when he was watching old Raws and whatever, he did not realize just how over Rob Van Dam was. And Rob Van Dam was crazy over. Like in 02, he was super, super over. And they really honestly should have put the world title on him back then. I know he won the belt in 06 to a monster pop at One Night Stand 06. Great match, great moment, awesome show, one of the best of all time. But they probably should have done it even earlier than that in 02 when he was at the peak, athletically, in terms of popularity. He was red hot back in 02. Today's roster, who is as hot as Rob Van Dam was back then? AJ Styles, he is super fucking over. Like Nakamura, his entrance is great, and he's super over too. And Nakamura is very much over. But AJ, during his matches, the pops he's getting from, his entrance and during the matches, AJ is crazy over. Like, it's ridiculous. Sami Zayn is not as over as he once was, but he could be the new Rob Van Dam, where it took him a while to win the world title. but he was over in the meantime as a mid-card guy. So it could be Sami Zayn, but he's not nearly as over as RVD was back in 2002. I'd have to say AJ from now. I would say AJ, honestly, is the most over guy in the entire company. I'm not just saying that as an AJ Styles fan. I honestly think he is. I don't know about selling tickets and merch and shit, but he definitely gets bigger reactions than Seth Rollins. Definitely more, though. I mean, Roman Reigns gets a lot of response in terms of boos and stuff. But even John Cena, I mean, every time he comes back, people are awake for the guy, but AJ gets louder pops than he does nowadays. So maybe AJ Styles is probably as popular as RVD was back in 2002. Not in the same place in the company, because AJ is now a former WWE champion, and he's not as underrated as RVD was back then, but in terms of loudness of pops, I would have to say AJ Styles. Mark S. from Facebook's got a couple questions here. First one being, what would you think of a tag team involving Dean Ambrose and Finn Balor if both guys weren't up to much? I guess. I mean, it's not really something that intrigues me. I would much rather. Finn Balor is not up to anything right now. Let's not kid ourselves. He is not doing a damn thing. What, a feud with the Drifter? Give me a fucking break. Who cares? The Drifter has been used better on Raw than he ever was in NXT. Good for him. But honestly, Finn Balor, Elias Samson, really, who gives a shit? Balor deserves a lot better than that. I know they don't have anything for him right now, but he deserves a lot better than a feud with the fucking Drifter. Who gives a shit? So I would put him with the Club, who are also not doing anything right now. I mean, a million people have said this. We've talked about this on the show a million times before. But Balor and Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows is a natural pairing. That is just a terrific trio. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you go down that path? I don't know why they're so hesitant to put these guys together. Him and Ambrose, who cares? Put Balor with the Club, put Ambrose with the Shield, and boom, you're golden. Put them against each other, and you have money. You have a money feud, a money match right there. Probably would be as good as the Shield and the Wyatt family was years ago. So, yeah, that's what I would like to see. An Ambrose, Balor, tag team, who cares? But Ambrose and the Shield, Balor and Anderson and Gallows, sign me up. His second question, people seem to have mixed opinions about Big Cass and Enzo Amore splitting up. What are your thoughts? Were they right to break up when they did, or should they have stayed together? Like I said earlier, they should have stayed together. I'm not saying that they should have never broken up. It was bound to happen one day. I think they're way better off, as a tag team than they are alone. I've said that before. But, I don't know, just right now, it didn't seem right. Like, if you want to split Big Cass off from Enzo and put him with Carmella and take Ellsworth off TV, then yeah, I'm all for that. But Cass on his own right now, I feel like he could use a mouthpiece. He could talk on his own. He's still getting there. His promos are good. They're not great, but they're getting there. I mean, it's still too early to tell, but even when he was with Enzo would do all the talking. I feel like he needs a mouthpiece. Maybe not Paul Heyman, but Carmella works. Enzo would work, but they've been split up. Enzo on his own does nothing for me. Him in the Cruiserweight division is a joke. It's a fucking joke. I know he fits the bill. He's under 205. He's under 205, I believe. But he fucking sucks. Like, him against Neville, he would get destroyed in 2 minutes. Him against even Noam Dar, he'd get beaten in a minute. Enzo is not good in the ring at all. I assume they're probably going to do Big Show and Big Cass going forward with Enzo in Big Show's corner. But beyond that, I don't care about an Enzo and Cass feud. An Enzo on his own, I don't give two shits. Cass, there's some interest there, but I feel like, again, it was way too soon. It broke them up way too soon. They never won a single tag title, which blows my mind how popular they are and how popular they were in NXT on the main roster. And like I said earlier, they weren't as over as they were a year ago when they first showed up. But really, they should have won the tag titles at least once. And I still say, had the Hardy Boys not re-signed to WWE, Enzo and Cass probably would have won the belts at WrestleMania. And because they didn't, WWE split them up. But they just split up Golden Truth. And now they only have Slater and Rhino and fucking the Hardy Boys. And that's it. The Hardy Boys are great, but there's a big drop-off between them and Slater and Rhino. Like, come on. So I still think it's a mistake. Maybe they change my mind going forward with the promos they'll have. I thought the segment on Raw was good. I didn't like how Enzo was made out to look like a complete idiot. But I mean, at least they bought into it, and I bought into it, at least partially anyway, when Cass turned on him on the stage. But I just thought it was way too premature. I still say that. I'll still say that till the day I die. Until they change my mind, I will continue to say relentlessly that it was way too early to break up Enzo and Cass. His next question here, do you think the Velveteen Dream could be a main roster act, or should he remain in NXT? Absolutely remain in NXT. There is no question that he is not even close to being ready for the main roster. If he even makes it to the main roster, he's got to get over in NXT first. We've had the guys did 2 fucking matches at Chicago, that when they filmed it before TakeOver Chicago, and then he had another match in the Full Sail Arena like a week or 2 ago. The guy's a great athlete. Patrick Clark can wrestle. The character leaves a lot to be desired. It does nothing for me personally, but maybe it becomes a fan favorite in NXT. And even if it gets over in NXT, that does not mean it's going to get over on the main roster. I don't think it will. I doubt he ever gets called up, but again, seeing is believing. I never thought the Drifter would get called up, and look at that, he did. So you never know what might happen, but absolutely no question. I don't even know why we're discussing this. Velveteen Dream remains in NXT. No question. Russell R. from Facebook for our final Facebook question here before moving to the Twitter questions. Do you think Cody will pull off the impossible and beat Okada at the G1 special this weekend and become the first ever American-born wrestler to hold the Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling titles at the same time? I don't think he will, but it would be damn cool. First of all, congrats to Cody for winning the ROH World title on Friday. Absolutely the right decision. He deserved it. He's earned it. He's worked his ass off since leaving WWE a year ago, and he made the right call in leaving. Look at all the belts he's won. He's won belt in GFW for what it's worth. He's won belts in What Culture over in Ring of Honor. I'm sure other promotions too. Northeast Wrestling, the promotion I go to all the time. He's the world champion over there. He is the Northeast Wrestling champion, which is fucking amazing. So I'm very happy to see him doing well. I don't think he beats Okada. Cody's great, but he's no Kenny Omega. If Cody can beat Okada, even if it's with a shit finish, which New Japan is not known for anyway, so I doubt that happens. But if Cody can beat Okada and not Omega, there's something wrong there. But I would understand if they wanted to lead to a bigger story with him, with him beating Okada when Kenny Omega could, and they turn Omega face, and they do Cody and Omega for Wrestle Kingdom next year. But we're bound to get Omega and Okada 3, where I would assume Omega wins finally. And I've seen people, compare it to Steamboat and Savage or Steamboat and Flair. And honestly, that's a great comparison. I would say the same thing. It's probably the closest we will ever get to Steamboat and Flair from back in the day is Omega and Okada. So no, I don't think Cody will win. I don't think he should win. I wouldn't be mad. That would be fucking cool if he could do both. But I also have a hard time believing that he's going to go over there and lose clean as the Ring of Honor World Champion. So we'll see what happens. Having the Ring of Honor World Champion at all, going for the New Japan World title, might be a first. I could be wrong, but that might be a first. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not huge into New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I might be wrong there. But it could be a first time ever situation. But again, I don't see him winning. Would be cool if he did. I don't think he does. But we'll see where they go from here. I am interested in seeing where they go with the feud, though, with Cody, Omega, and Okada. It would be cool if Cody won and says, I could beat Okada and you couldn't, Kenny. But then again, like I said, though, Omega is far and away a better performer than Cody Rhodes is. And so it wouldn't make that much sense from an in-ring standpoint, but if they wanted to go that route, it would be interesting, though. Either way, they got me hooked. I will be watching that either way. At the Average Grunt from Twitter, moving to the Twitter questions now. Should Triple H ever compete in NXT, and if so, against who? I put a lot of thought into that when you said that. Probably not. I'm good with Triple H and never wrestling again. I just don't think there's a big desire there. Like, oh man, you know what? I can't wait for that Triple H match. It's going to be great. Like, not really. The Rollins feud, yeah, because Rollins and H had been built up over so long. But it's like, you know what? Triple H and fucking Finn Balor, oh man, I need to see that. It's like, not really, no. How many times can you do this story where Triple H faces a young up-and-coming star? I know they've kind of switched it off with him facing Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker and Sting. Like, he's faced people from his generation, but how many times can you do him against the up-and-coming star and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan and whoever else and losing? Like, but he shouldn't win, so you're stuck in a lose-lose situation, which is why I think he should just retire. If he wants to stay an on-air character, that's fine. I don't need to see him on my TV every week. But him and Angle, I assume, is coming for WrestleMania, which is cool. I don't really want to see Triple H in another match beyond that, but I said the same thing about Rollins, so we'll see where they go. In NXT, it's a bit different. like I know I thrive and I not thrive. I very much what's the word I'm looking for? I very much praise. That's the word I'm looking for here. I very much praise the consistency between NXT and the main roster. The how they kind of carry over certain wrestlers and stories from both promotions. They don't pretend that nothing like ever happened. They don't pretend that NXT doesn't exist like they did years ago. Nowadays, it's a big part of the main roster because a lot of, like 75% of the main roster came from NXT. But that being said, the weird thing is that Triple H is a heel in the main roster, but he's a babyface in NXT as like the proud papa of the promotion. So do you book him as a heel? I wouldn't think so. Like if you wanted to turn Triple H, I guess he'd be a heel for the match with Angle. But if you wanted to turn him face one last time, I think he's a better heel than a babyface. But people love the guy, so it's hard to turn him heel. That's the thing. So if he's wrestling in NXT, I don't think he should wrestle in NXT. But if he does, he'd have to be a babyface because people done in NXT see what he's done with the product, see what he's done with the brand, and really turned it around from where it was 5 years ago, and they love the hell out of him for it. So he can't be a heel. They respect him too much. So if he's going to face a babyface, or rather he's going to face a heel in NXT, Bobby Roode makes the most sense, and not only because he's the top heel there, but there's been so many similarities between Triple H and Bobby Roode over the years, not only from how they look, but from how they, present themselves as the, suit-wearing, cocky-ass heel, to their in-ring styles, not only from how they look, but from all those things too. I think a Bobby Roode Triple H match would be fucking cool. I mean, I guess Bobby Roode would have to win, and I would absolutely be for that, but again, Triple H takes another loss. And he's got to win one eventually. I know he lost to Roman, he lost to Seth, he beat Sting for whatever reason, but you can't bring Triple H out of retirement every year to lose. I mean, he should lose, but he can't lose every single year. So it's weird. You're stuck in a weird situation there. But him and Bobby Roode, I don't really want to see him wrestle in NXT, but if he does, him and Bobby Roode would be pretty cool. Next question from Sean Marcus. He's got a couple questions here too. On a scale from 1 to 10, how excited are you for Samoa Joe versus Brock Lesnar? Absolutely a 10. Again, like I said before, this has been a dream match of mine for many years, as it has been for many other people. I assume it's going to be great. The build has been awesome. What they did on Monday was really cool. Joe choking out Lesnar. With the brawl they did the week before that, and Joe, beating up Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, choking up Paul Heyman. Everything they have done with Samoa Joe so far has been, they've done it right. They have done right by Samoa Joe in the build to this bout. Even really in the main roster, the guy only lost one match on the main roster, a payback to Seth Rollins. And even that was by like a fucking roll-up or something. So it was a fluke win for Seth Rollins. Beyond that, Joe has been very much protected in WWE on Raw as a part of the main roster. So him and Brock Lesnar, I'm looking forward to. I really hope it's not going to be a 2 5-minute squash and Joe gets beaten the fuck out of and that's it. I mean, even Heyman said it won't be like that, so in that promo on Raw on Monday. So that being said, it would be kind of contradictory to do this amazing build and then do a 2-minute match. That would be pretty stupid. But they've done that before. The Orton build they thought was great too, and look where they fucking went with that. That match sucked. So again, at SummerSlam last year. So we'll see where they go with it. I just moved my mic, so if the audio fucked up there for a second, I apologize. We'll see what they do with it, but I'm very much excited for that match. Probably more excited for that match than I have been all year for anything in WWE. The Money in the Bank ladder match main event last Sunday or 2 weeks ago was great, but this is probably the most excited I've been for the main event of a pay-per-view in a long-ass time in WWE. His second question, what is your favorite ladder match of the past decade in WWE? Great question. There's a lot. Ziggler Harper was great at TLC 2014. Probably not my favorite, but it was really good. Ziggler and Cena at TLC 2012 was awesome. The Money in the Bank ladder matches, like if you're talking Money in the Bank, the one at WrestleMania 24 was awesome. That still might be my number one favorite. The ones at Money in the Bank 2013, both were great. The All-Star ladder match and the one of the up-and-comers, the SmackDown one earlier on that evening in July of 2013 was awesome. Those are two of my favorites. Great show, by the way. The one from last Sunday with the men was awesome. Again, it's hard to say that either or any one of those are my number one favorite, though. Ziggler and Miz was really good from TLC last year. I'm thinking about the ladder matches from like recent pay-per-views, like the TLC pay-per-views. The one at WrestleMania 33 was great. The one that we just had, or a couple of years ago now, it was New Day Lucha Dragons and Usos. That was tremendous. I was there for that one in Boston. That was a great show at TLC 2015. TLC 2013, we didn't get one. TLC 2011, what did we get? Triple H and Nash? Whatever. 2010, we had Ziggler, Mysterio, and Ray. Or Ziggler, Mysterio... No, Ziggler... Mysterio and Ray doesn't even make sense. Ziggler, Kofi, and Swagger was good. We had... What was the other ladder match that year? Sheamus and Morrison was pretty good. There's been a lot of great ladder matches in WWE. It's hard to say what's my favorite. Again, it might go back to the ladder match, the Money in the Bank ladder match from WrestleMania 24, if not either one from Money in the Bank 2013. But in terms of a standard ladder match that's not Money in the Bank, I'd probably have to go with that triple threat from TLC 2015. It wasn't the greatest of all time, but I was there for that, so I love that match to death with the triple threat tag team match. So I'd probably have to go with that. And the one from WrestleMania 33 this year was also great because I was also there for that too. But I'd probably have to go with the New Day, Usos, Lucha Dragons one from TLC 2015. And there's a lot of other great ones I'm sure I'm forgetting too. Who can you see Shinsuke Nakamura facing at SummerSlam? So it looks like based off of what we saw on SmackDown last night, we're getting a Baron Corbin Nakamura feud, which makes sense because Corbin attacked Nakamura at Money in the Bank. He pushed him up the ladder and AJ to win the briefcase. So a Corbin Nakamura match would make sense. I'm sure they're going to do it for Battleground, but they could always extend it beyond Battleground and do it at SummerSlam too. They could do Corbin and AJ. AJ might be done with Owens by then. So Nakamura and or no, what I said Corbin and AJ. You're saying Shinsuke. So hopefully they don't do Shinsuke and AJ at SummerSlam. I've seen some people say that. I think it's better saved to WrestleMania, and I think they know that too. I know they planted the seeds on SmackDown and at Money in the Bank, but I think it'd be better off for WrestleMania. That is absolutely a WrestleMania-worthy match. So, yeah, Nakamura and Corbin. Nakamura-Owens would be good, because Nakamura does own a couple of victories over Owens, and if Owens does escape this feud with AJ as the United States champion, then Owens and Nakamura would make sense. But yeah, for right now, I'm going to think that Corbin and Nakamura extends beyond Battleground, and they have a rematch at SummerSlam. At Chris S. Krieger, his question was, best non-Big Four pay-per-view, that you've seen, i.e. best non-Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Without a doubt, Money in the Bank 2011. Like, people still talk about that pay-per-view to this day as one of the best pay-per-views in WWE history. Not only the past 5 to 6 years, but of all time. From the Punk stuff to the 2 ladder matches, it was a tremendous show. The environment, especially for back then, like 2011, I talk about it all the time in terms of it being one of my favorite years in wrestling in WWE, but it really wasn't that great of a year. And back then, when we didn't have people like Punk and Bryan and people like that on top, it was really cool to see them succeed in one night. So, yeah, that pay-per-view was great. And I would probably have to say that's the best non-4 pay-per-view, Big Four pay-per-view in the past, really ever. You're saying from what I've seen. But yeah, that pay-per-view would be it. Of all time, Canadian Stampede would be up there. The In Your House show I talked about a few months ago. That was awesome. That was a great fucking show. But yeah, for me, that I've seen, I would say Money in the Bank 2011, without a doubt. Still my favorite pay-per-view of all time. At RJ_Marceau, his question was, thoughts on the potential feud with the Kanellises versus Sami Zayn, and what do you expect from the act in general? So yeah, first of all, I talked about it. It's funny because, like I said, I filmed last week's episode 2 weeks ago. And it might have been, I think, at Carson Rush on Twitter, asked me, what's an update? Like, can you provide an update on Adam Cole and Maria and Mike Bennett in WWE? There's been rumors about them for months now. And I said, yeah, Adam Cole might be here soon, probably by SummerSlam. And then for Mike and Maria, they should be debuting anytime now because they were rumored to debut like 2 months ago. And that episode came out after they debuted on the Sunday at Money in the Bank. So I talked about it before they debuted, but it aired after they debuted that Sunday at the pay-per-view. But anyway, I'm so happy to see them in the company. They're great. They're a great act. They were a great act in Ring of Honor. They were a great act in TNA. I hope what we see from them on SmackDown is similar to what we saw from them in TNA, which is weird to say, but yeah, they had a great act over there. You can talk shit about TNA all you want. I know they left TNA because they weren't being paid a lot or whatever the reason was. But they had a great act over there, despite the fact they were booked not all that great towards the end. They had a great thing going early on, the power couple of TNA. And I hope we get something similar in WWE. And it seems like so far it will be that. I know the whole power of love thing, people don't get it. It's cheesy, but it's supposed to be cheesy. You want to boo these people because they're so over the top with their love for one another. I think it's great. I think it works in so many levels. So, yeah, I think it's I can't really give an opinion on it. We've only seen so little of it. They had a minute-long promo at the pay-per-view. They weren't on SmackDown last week. I know they had a .com video, but it wasn't anything special. And they talked for no more than 10 seconds this week before being interrupted by Sami Zayn. So I can't really give a full-fledged opinion on the gimmick yet, but so far from what I've seen, I like it. I think it has potential, and they can make it work knowing Maria and Mike. They're a great couple. They have awesome chemistry together. The feud of Sami Zayn, I like. I like how they set it up with Sami making his entrance for his match with Corbin last night while they were talking. I thought Mike would cost him the match, Sami the match. He didn't. But they might set something up for next week for a match at Battleground, which would be cool. But that's the perfect first feud for Mike Bennett. Sami Zayn is great, but he could take a million losses and he'll still be fine because people still love the guy. As long as you're not booking him in dumb promos where he comes across like annoying backstage, him losing a lot is okay. As long as he still gets promo time to be himself and not annoying as hell, and he's still made to look good in defeat, Sami Zayn will be just fine. So I think a first feud for Mike Bennett, Mike Kanellis, or whatever, and Maria with Sami Zayn, it makes sense, and I'm looking forward to it. And the matches could be good, really, really good too, considering they're both Ring of Honor alumni as well. At the Wrestle Guy from Twitter, Sal's question was, if Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar happens at SummerSlam instead of WrestleMania 34, do you expect John Cena versus Roman Reigns to main event that show now instead? I don't think Roman and Brock is happening at SummerSlam. I know Roman threw out their last weekend Raw that, I'm challenging the winner of Joe and Lesnar, and we all know that Lesnar is winning the match. But I don't think it would be dumb. We all know they're doing Roman and Brock at Mania. Because what do you do with Brock between now and Mania? Because we know Brock's probably leaving at Mania. That's when his contract expires, I believe. So I assume he's leaving. So after that, what do you do with the guy? If he loses the belt at SummerSlam, what do you do with him? So I'm not saying he should. I mean, I would hope Joe wins at the pay-per-view coming up. I don't think he will. It'd be great if he did, but he won't. So anyway, that being said, I don't think they're doing Roman and Brock. Doing a similar thing with Roman and Brock and doing a non-finish at SummerSlam to build to a bigger bout at WrestleMania is a waste. That should be the spot for Braun Strowman or another Samoa Joe match or whoever else. Doing Reigns and Lesnar before doing it again at WrestleMania would be dumb. So I don't think they are doing Roman and Brock at SummerSlam. I don't even think they're doing Cena and Reigns either. At least not right now. They have so much time to do that match. They could do it at WrestleMania 35 if they want to. Because you know Cena's going to be around for a while. I know he's not full-time anymore, but he's going to be around for a long time. They could do it whenever they want to. So yeah, Reigns and Cena, I know they teased something on Twitter. Cena was doing a Q&A, and he was like, I know he calls himself, he says this is his yard. I want to put that to the test or something like that. But they've had their back and forths on Twitter before. It's never really led to anything on TV yet. So I know we will see that match eventually to pass the torch, the proverbial torch from John Cena to Roman Reigns. I don't think we get it at SummerSlam, because I guess we could get. I guess you could do Lesnar and Strowman at SummerSlam if Lesnar beats Joe and then Strowman beats the other Joe, the other Samoan Joe, Roman Reigns at Great Balls of Fire. And then you can do Roman and Joe at SummerSlam. I could see that. We've had 2 matches between the two that were really good, but not a full-fledged feud. So I could see that. I guess they could do Cena and Reigns, but from what I've heard, that's not the direction they're going in. So we'll see where they go. But no, I don't think we're getting Cena and Reigns at WrestleMania 34. I still think it's going to be Cena and, or rather Roman and Brock Lesnar for the belt. And we don't get it at SummerSlam as had been teased. His next question, how should WWE start a Nakamura versus AJ Styles feud? Should it be a slowly built turn or something that happens more suddenly, and when should it happen? Yeah, absolutely it should be more slowly built. I mean, we've already had the seeds planted when they teamed on SmackDown a few weeks ago and they teamed together and then they had the whole face-off afterwards. That was awesome. So if we see that again, that was cool. I know they had their clash in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Obviously designed to plant the seeds for a future match. I'm laughing because I'm so excited for the match. I'm so friggin' excited for Styles and Nakamura in a WWE ring. And if they're allowed to go all out, as I know they probably will be, and they did it at Money in the Bank, that obviously awesome chemistry there. Even by WWE standards, that match could be terrific. So I really hope they're allowed to go all out when they eventually face off. And you said, what should happen? When should it happen? WrestleMania. I mean, like I said, SummerSlam, I get it's the biggest stage next to WrestleMania. And anything can happen between now and then. AJ could get hurt, God forbid. Nakamura could get hurt, God forbid. I hope that's not the case. But I think they are saving it for SummerSlam. I think we're going to get Corbin and Nakamura at Battleground. I mean, again, it still could happen. They could wrap up Corbin and Nakamura for Battleground, and then wrap up AJ and Owens for Battleground. But to me, I think it's just too premature to rush into a match. For what reason? Number one contenders match? Like, it should be for the title at WrestleMania. Maybe not the main event. We all know that's going to Roman and Brock. But I think it was at Jeremy8911 on Twitter. He said it makes sense to do. I think he said Cena and Reigns, but even Reigns and Lesnar makes sense. Like, if you want to do Reigns and Lesnar for the casual fans, and then do AJ Nakamura for the hardcore fans as their top 2 title matches at WrestleMania, that's awesome. That makes perfect sense to me. So I hope that's what we see. But yeah, it should be slowly built. It shouldn't be like out of nowhere, like boom, Nakamura AJ at SummerSlam. Oh my God! Like with Lesnar and Orton last year, like it was cool that it was going to happen. The match wasn't all that good, but they announced it out of nowhere, like on a random SmackDown after the 4th of July, and they had it announced in like a random ass backstage segment or one of the pre-tapes with Scott Stanford and Corey Graves and whoever. Like, it was a complete waste. It was really weird. So I hope that's not what they do with AJ Nakamura. I don't think they will, and they should save it for WrestleMania 34. Next question from Mr. Singleton 16. Final few questions here. His question was, is Nia Jax a monster or not? I don't understand why she isn't booked like a Beth Phoenix or Chyna. Dude, Beth Phoenix was booked horribly. I don't know where you were 10 years ago, but Beth Phoenix, yeah, she was an impressive athlete, but she was booked like shit. She was booked absolutely terribly. Just if you go back and look at how she was booked, maybe early on, yeah, she was dominant back in 2007. She lost the belt after a long reign to Mickie James, which is fine, on a random Raw in April. And she was booked like crap. She was losing all these random matches. She was involved in the relationship with Santino, the most comedic guy in the entire company. And then she was facing him, and it was terrible. She was not a good babyface. And they had her losing to Kelly all the time in 2011 again. Their booking of her was not as good as you remember. Like, on paper, she was, a dominant athlete, but more often than not, she was not booked all that well. So maybe it's just romanticizing about the past, thinking she was more dominant than she actually was. But yeah, she had the potential to be more dominant than she was, but she really wasn't. She was booked not all that well towards the end. For the last few years of her career, she was not booked well at all. Chyna's a different story. Chyna was a fucking freak of nature, as is Nia Jax and Beth Phoenix, but Chyna's a completely different story. She was facing men, she was beating men, she was in the Rumble. I know Beth Phoenix was in the Rumble, as she should have been, and Karma too. I wouldn't be surprised if Nia Jax showed up in the Rumble too at some point in the next couple of years. Nia Jax should not be facing the men. I'm kind of over that. I don't really need to see that in WWE. But Chyna and Nia Jax are two very different people. Chyna was way better off than Nia Jax ever was. But again, I don't know where you were, but Nia Jax looked great. I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, but she looked great in Monday's Raw Gauntlet in the number one contenders match for the Raw Women's Championship. She looked great there. She beat Bayley, Dana Brooke, Mickie James, and who else was in the match? Emma. She beat 4 women in a row, and then she only lost because Sasha Banks was fresh off of coming in. Nia Jax had been there for like 20 minutes. She had been there for like a half hour. So Nia Jax looked great on Monday. Again, she is booked pretty well for the most part. She should be more dominant than she is. She needs better direction. She wasn't even at the last pay-per-view because she was completely off TV for like a friggin' month. But she's probably booked better than Beth Phoenix was back in the day. I know Nia Jax has not yet won a championship, nor should she. She's not all that good yet. Beth Phoenix was the better wrestler than Nia Jax is. But she was booked very well on Monday. So again, I'm not really sure where you're getting that from, but she was booked very well in Monday's main event. His next question, why do some fans take WWE programming so much more seriously than any other TV show on television? Romance storylines are a prime example. So with the romance storylines, I do agree people take WWE very seriously. I take WWE very seriously. A lot of people do. WWE fans are probably the most passionate fan base. One of the most passionate fan bases out there compared to anything. Not only sports or entertainment really anything, WWE fans are more passionate about the product than almost anyone else out there about anything. I will agree with that. But, I mean, I'm not a big follower of any other show out there, so I'm not really sure if people were this in tune with Breaking Bad and shows like that. Sports is the same thing, though. I feel like people talk about stats and this and that and their history, and it's the same thing. It's just not scripted. But people are, way more into WWE than any other TV show, because WWE is for one thing, on way more than any other TV show. Like, TV shows air once a week. Yeah, so does Raw, but so does SmackDown. They have their own network. It's a business. They have their house shows. That's why people are way more into WWE than any other TV show out there. I'm not saying WWE is more popular. I'm saying the fan base is takes it much more seriously because it's a real business, even though it's scripted, if that makes sense. With romance storylines with the romance storylines as the thing, why do people take them more seriously? Because they're not fucking well done at all. They're terribly done. I know they might have been well done 10, 15 years ago. I know the whole Trish, Christian, Jericho, and Lita storyline back in 04, 05, 03, 04, 05 was really well done. But back then, they could write a romance storyline that wasn't complete trash. Nowadays, it's total garbage. The Cedric Alexander and Noam Dar and Alicia Fox thing is absolute turn-off TV material. It's cringeworthy television. That's how bad it is. And I like Cedric. Noam Dar's okay. Alicia Fox, I could give two shits about. But, yeah, no, they can't book a romance storyline to save their life. That's why people shit on them. That's why people don't like romance storylines. Because they can't book a romance storyline to save their lives nowadays. It's because they bring in all these writers from other TV shows and where they do romance storylines all the time on their shows, on their soap opera TVs, on their soap opera TV shows. But it doesn't really mesh all that well with wrestling. You have to book it a certain way, and if you don't do it a certain way, it comes off very bad. It comes off very poorly. So that's why people are very hesitant to accept a romance storyline in today's day and age in wrestling, because WWE, anyway, does not do them very well. Final question here from @E13A. Let's see how long we're going in here. We are, an hour and 26 minutes. Holy shit. Definitely a superstar show here today. @E13A with our final question from Twitter. When was the first time you ever found out about the Benoit family homicide-suicide incident? Great question. I did a lot of digging and found a lot more about it in 2011, but I find it very hard to believe that I went 3 years without knowing about it. I definitely knew about it before then, because I would play the video games. It's impossible. I definitely knew about it way before 2011. I don't remember a specific moment where I found out about it. I feel like I read about it briefly when I first started watching wrestling. I've talked about it before. People have asked me, how do you become more knowledgeable about WWE? Well, when I was really young, or at least 9 years ago, not really young, but when I first started watching the product 9 years ago in 2008, I would go to Wikipedia and look up people's Wikipedia pages to see what their old feuds were, and their old, history in the company and titles they have won and stuff like that, heel and face turns, whatever. And I definitely read about Benoit at some point, and back in 2008, but I don't remember, at what point. I don't remember, holy shit, that's crazy that it happened. I don't remember. That's a good question. I definitely read about it when I first started watching in, the summer of 2008. I started watching it in April of 2008, but I think I first found out about it via reading about it in the summer of 2008. And back then, it would have been a lot harder for me to find out about it beyond just looking it up in Wikipedia and shit, because social media is not a big thing at all, and obviously WWE never brings it up. So how would I have found out beyond? I think maybe John had told me, been playing the SmackDown and Raw games, because he was in the old SmackDown versus Raw 06 and 07 video games. It's probably how I was introduced to Chris Benoit, and then I found out myself what went down with him and when he killed his family and himself back in 07. So probably I want to say 2008 is when I found out, but I don't have a defining moment. I don't remember a defining moment when I found out about it and did more research, but it was probably around the summer of 2008 though. But it is crazy to think it marked 10 years this past weekend since that whole thing went down. That is just insane. Again, time flies. Like I said at the start of the show, we're quickly approaching the halfway mark of 2017. Friday/Saturday marks that point where 2017 is halfway over. It's crazy. So that being said, guys, thank you for checking out the show. Per usual, I appreciate it. Send in your questions by tweeting me on the Twitter machine @WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Give me your questions and comments on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but not least, drop a question down below in the comment section. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So that being said, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. Enjoy NXT tonight if you're listening to this on Wednesday, or Impact Wrestling tomorrow. I know Slammiversary is on Sunday, but who could possibly give two shits, honestly? I mean, it could be a decent show, really, but when was the last real must-see, memorable TNA pay-per-view? I could not name one in the past 5 years. Anyway, guys, have a great one. Be sure to, as always, share the video, like the video, drop a comment with your question, or what your thoughts on the video, how bad it was, how good it was, whatever. And subscribe to the channel for daily content. Until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.